came here to chew bubblegum and kick some ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum. Welcome, sinners, to another episode of Saturday Night Sinema. As always, I'm your host. I can't get my sunglasses on my head. Whatever. Sawyer Saint Sin. And as you can see, again, I'm just as, unprepared, unprofessional as ever. This is fun. So, tonight we're talking about They Live. Now, with the amount of time that I've watched this week, plus all of the YouTube kind of, videos, just like, some other people reviewing them, some facts about the movie, just different stuff. I don't know, maybe I got on some kind of government watch list. Who knows? We'll see. It'll be fun. No one's going to take me away yet. So, one of the many taglines that are associated with this is obey or else. And then, of course, as you see, they live, we sleep. It's on so much things. But its release date is November 4th, 1988. Director, John Carpenter. It was based on a short story, technically comic book, called 8 O'Clock in the Morning, and that was by Ray Nielsen. If you watch the movie, you'll see the writer says that it is not John Carpenter. It is actually an alias that he made up. Well, he didn't make it up. He just used it. It's actually a character from a Lovecraft book. Anyways, Carpenter didn't want his name kind of plastered all over it to look like an egotistical jackass. So he just threw a name in there that he liked from a Lovecraft novel. Smart. Sorry, rogue hair. Anyways, our cast is the best wrestler of all time. I don't care what anyone says. I love him. He is absolutely fantastic. I actually got to meet him in person, and I didn't know how to handle myself. I think I just smiled like an idiot the whole time. Because what else do you do when you meet Roddy Piper? There's nothing. I can't think of anything. I smile, and I'm in my head, I'm fangirling, freaking out. He plays our hero of the story, our everyday, man, just hard laborer trying to make it. It's George Nada. Goodness gracious, George Nada. Then we have Keith David as Frank. He has, he worked with John Carpenter on The Thing, and Carpenter remembered him and actually kind of wrote this part tailored to a lot of, Keith's attributes as an actor, which I thought was actually really cool. We have Meg Foster as Holly, and she's a legend. We have Buck Flowers as just Drifter. That's all he got. Drifter. We have Peter Jason as Gilbert. And then we have Raymond St. Jacques. I think it's how you pronounce it. I'm really bad with French pronouncing. I took French in high school and I'm still horrible at it. He is our blind street preacher. So those are kind of our main guys that, move the story along. Just a couple of points. John Carpenter was thinking about going with Kurt Russell. for this part, but they had just, they had done a bunch of stuff together. And he kind of wanted someone who was more, like I said, like an everyday, just a rugged, everyday, run-of-the-mill guy. Carpenter was a big wrestling fan. So, he knew of Piper. He watched Piper in WrestleMania 3. And that is kind of what made Carpenter want to reach out to him for this role. Funny thing is that, like, Carpenter knew who Roddy was and was a fan of Roddy, but Roddy didn't know who Carpenter was. And I mean, come on guys, like Halloween had already been out by this time, but like, when you're, a superstar back in those days, you were on the road like pretty much all year doing your thing. So it's not really surprising that Roddy didn't know who Carpenter was. But anyways, so some more little backstory. Vince McMahon didn't want Roddy doing it, and Roddy said, well, I'm gonna do it. And like shortly after that is like when he like had his little hiatus from WWE for a little bit. He also made another movie called Hell Comes to Frogtown, and it's not necessarily like a horror movie, but I might want to talk about that one because it's such a great movie. Hell Comes to Frogtown. It's great. Anyways, another thing that Carpenter did for this movie, like I said, he was a fan of wrestling. Everyone talks about the fight scene between Nada and Frank, right? Everyone talks about it. It's one of the greatest fight scenes, like, in movie history. It's fantastic. But Carpenter specifically wanted, like, 3 wrestling moves in their fight scene. So, like, that happened. And of course, me being a wrestling fan, I, like, was like, oh my god, look! Oh my god, look! Oh my god! Anyways. Y'all, I like wrestling. So, when you put my 2 favorite things together, wrestling and horror movies, it's just gonna make me very happy. It's gonna make me very, very happy. So, let's get into the story, shall we? Alright. So, we are met seeing a train go by in the train tracks, and all of a sudden, there's no station or anything, but, like, there's a dude. And it's Nada. Nada, we don't really get to hear much about his backstory, but assuming from the way he looks and the way he looked like he literally just jumped off that train, he is a homeless drifter of sorts, right? So he walks into LA and he finds, the job center. And the job opportunities wall is like blank. Like, there is nothing on this wall except for, like, okay, there are some blank pieces of paper, but other than that, there's like really nothing. And so he talks to the lady. She's like, last place of employment. And he's like, Denver, Colorado. Worked there for 10 years until things just sort of dried up. And he's like trying to make some like light, humor with her, right? And she's just like, we have nothing for you. And he's just like, oh, okay, whatever. So he starts walking down the road. He stops and listens to the blind street preacher for a little bit until he notices that, like, cops are coming his way. So he just kind of, like, saunters off. And unfortunately, he spends his first night in LA in an alleyway watching someone's TV from the alleyway, cold, probably hungry, just, not in a good way. Next thing we see is he stumbles onto a construction site and he's talking to the foreman, and the foreman's like, well, this is a union job. And then he notices that there's a group of people speaking in Spanish, like, don't really look like they're part of a union. So he very, like, slyly is like, okay, well, I would like to speak to, I can't remember what they call the people who do the records for the union on the sites, but that person. And so he gets a job on the construction site because he just called dude's bluff. And this is where he meets Frank. So Frank is like, hey, like, and I can tell you the name of a place, if you need a hot meal and, a place to sleep. And Nada really doesn't say anything to him. He doesn't really respond, right? He just starts putting on his shirt. Which, by the way, okay, we get to see Roddy Piper shirtless twice in this movie. Thank you, Carpenter. Anyways, so Frank's like, okay, well, he doesn't want to answer me. I'm moving on. So he starts, walking, and he notices that Nada is, like, following him. And Frank, like, is like, I don't like, anyone following me, blah, blah. And then Nada's like, well, I don't, like to, follow someone that I don't know what his intentions are, things of that nature. So they have, like, some little banter. But Frank, like, ends up taking Nada to the little shanty village that he lives at. It's just a bunch of, unfortunately, homeless people making the best with what they have to, make a little, homestead in. And he meets Gilbert, and, Gilbert's like, oh, working man, you got some tools? And he's like, yeah. Or if you're handy with tools or something of that. And he's like, oh, a shower's caving in over there if you could help. But, Gilbert is kind of the one that, helps run things in that little area. He does, like, he gets the food together, all of that. So Frank and Nada have a hot meal. Frank tells Nada that, he has family back in Detroit. All the steel mills kind of dried up. Like, they were working real hard, things were great, but the upper heads were stuffing their pockets and basically screwing out, their workers, which seems to be the theme throughout the movie, is that the upper class is bleeding the middle and poor classes out of everything that they have. So, later that evening, Nada sees the Drifter and this other guy sitting around the TV. And while they're watching TV, the hacker starts jamming the signal of the TV station and is talking about, they're keeping us asleep, and, they're keeping us selfish, and this is the key to their existence. And it was really just rambling on about something that no one else is really for sure of. But they do realize that it's kind of giving them a headache. Like, him being on there is, like, giving them a headache. And the Drifter just, like, kind of, like, gets annoyed with it, right? And he's just annoyed. But Nadia, like, sees that the preacher across the street, right in front of the church, is kind of mouthing the exact same thing that the hacker is on the TV. So this gets his little, like, curious brain, like, working. He's like, what is this? But, like, the Drifter, like, gets up and turns it off, and he's just like, screw you, But then Nadia also notices that, like, shortly after that, when the transmission is, like, cut off, that Gilbert goes and he, like, helps, the blind man, the preacher, into the church. Cut to the next morning, Nada's, heading out for the day, and he runs into Gilbert. He's like, man, choir practice last night ran, like, really long. And Gilbert's like, oh, he, like, or he said something about the church and, you know, it being lit up all night or something. And Gilbert's like, yeah, choir practice. And, you know, Nada's like, at 4 in the morning? He's like, oh, you know, the kitchen also lets us, or the church also lets us, you know, use their kitchen. We've got a lot of people here, you know, take care of. And, Nada's just like, yeah, okay. Notices there's like some helicopters that are circling around. Doesn't really know what's up, right? But Nada decides that he wants to investigate the church. So he goes into a side door and he realizes that like the whole back of the church is just filled with a bunch of scientific materials, like lab materials, a bunch of cardboard boxes filled with something he doesn't know. And then the words, "They live, we sleep," like painted on the wall. Well, as he's looking around, he stumbles and like falls and realizes, oh, there's like a secret compartment door here, right? And so he looks and it's just more like of the cardboard boxes, and he's like, oh, okay. So he puts it back, and he also realizes that the choir practice is actually a recording, and he can hear them talking about the transmission, and, you know, they're like, it's not strong enough, they're just going to keep, you know, they're just going to keep jamming us out. We need to get, you know, the supplies on the street, and, you know, we're never going to reach that many people, and, you know, which really, it just looked like the transmission that they were doing was literally reaching just across the street. So you weren't really reaching a whole lot of people to begin with, right? Right. So, Nada, like, turns around, and there's the preacher. The preacher's like, let me feel your face. And so he's filling up all on his face and filling on his hands, and the preacher realizes that he, you know, is a laborer, like, you know, he's a hardworking, like, dude. So he tries to give him, like, sunglasses then, but, like, Nada's like, oh, I gotta get out. And he's like, you'll be back, you know, and everything. So, fun times are to be had at the shantytown coming up. You know, the copter overhead. So, like, late one night, or later that night after, you know, Nada was like poking around, you know, where he probably shouldn't have. Anyways. And Frank tells him, like, keep to yourself, you know. But there's a police raid. There's a police raid on the church. And, like, when I say raid, I mean, like, full force, like, you know, coming down the street. Helicopters in the sky, policemen on foot, like, marching with their shields and their batons, and some with guns, and it was crazy. So, everyone got out of the church before the cops came. So the cops raid the church, and then they set their sights on the homeless community right there across. They bring a bulldozer and they start tearing down everything. You know, people are trying to run away, and they're like, you know, beating them. But we know that Frank and Nada, like, were able to get out. And Frank, we don't know where Frank went. Like, we didn't see where he went. But Nada, like, unfortunately passes by where the hacker and the preacher are getting their butts whooped by the police. Like, they're just getting the crap beat out of them by the police. And he, like, you know, sees that they're preoccupied, so he's okay. But he sees a teenage boy from the village, and he helps him, like, get into a safe place. And then, like, Nada's out, and he ends up, like, again, sleeping, like, out in you know, the cold night of LA. The next morning, you see that some of the homeless have come back for some of their stuff. Funny thing about all this, they didn't destroy the TV, right? Didn't destroy the TV. The TV's still sitting there playing, you know, some like fucking buy this fashion or some sort of crap. Anyways, Nada goes over to the church and he notices like everything is gone. They even like painted over "They Live, We Sleep," right? It's painted over. It's washed out. So he breaks down the secret compartment and he grabs a box and he takes off. Once he's in an alleyway, he opens it up, thinking, you can see that he's thinking that it's going to be something valuable. And he opens it up and it's just a bunch of sunglasses. And then you see him like rifling through to see if there's anything like underneath. Just more sunglasses. So he's like, okay. So he takes a pair and then he hides the rest like in a trash can. Like he buries the box into a trash can. And he puts them on and he's just walking. And at first he's like looking at the ground and he notices that there's something weird about it. So he takes off the glasses. And like when you have the glasses on, everything is like in black and white. So that's what he was like looking, and he was like, oh, this is all like grayscale. What's going on? And then he looks at a billboard with the glasses on and it just says "Obey." So he takes them off and then it's like, you know, some kind of like technology billboard, and he puts them back on. It just says "Obey." My favorite billboard is the one of like, come to the Caribbean, and it's got a beach and the ocean and a girl in a bikini, and when he puts on the sunglasses it just says "Marry and reproduce." How rude. Anyways, he sees the newsstand and all of it is like no independent thought, sleep, you know, don't question authority, obey. Like it's just like, you know, like it's not the actual covers of the magazines. But then he gets a glimpse, oh boy, he gets a glimpse of what the rich guy at the newsstand actually looks like. And he looks like some kind of weird, decaying humanoid of some sort. Like they really do. They look like they have like some kind of flesh-eating disease and like weird kaleidoscope eyes. For aliens, they're pretty cool. And very like freaky at the same time. But they do kind of like hark back to the, to more of like the older like sci-fi movies, where the aliens kind of looked like a little human, but just like also like a little off, you know? Carpenter was upset that like some movies that had come out, you know, like E.T. had like made aliens like look cute, you know? So he was like, no, there's something to be feared. Anyways, so of course, you know, Piper's a little, not as a little freaked out about this, and you know, the guy is just like, what are you looking at? Like, what's wrong with you? But the guy gets in his car and leaves, and the newsstand runner is just like, hey man, you gonna pay for that? And Piper takes a look at the money in his hand under the sunglasses, and it just says, "This is your God." You feel that? Because I feel that. I feel that. Even still today. I feel you that, Carpenter. Anyways, so he puts the magazine down and he like goes off. He's like he's starting to freak out a little bit, right? So he goes into the grocery store, where again, it's just grayscale, obey, stay asleep, like just consume, right? Just written on everything. But an old lady bumps into him. And, you know, she's a fancy old lady, got a big old fur coat. she turns around and he sees her face, and he's like, whoa, man, are you ugly? And he looks at another lady, he's like, you're okay, but her, like, something about, like, moldy cheese, right? And then he's like, I take the glasses off, she looks like a normal old lady. Put on my glasses, fertilizer face, y'all. Oh my God. I'm gonna use that as an insult on somebody. Somebody's getting that as an insult, and I can't wait to use it. Fertilizer face. Oh, so good. Anyways, she talks into her wristwatch, and she's like, I got one that can see. And then everybody who looked like her in the grocery store talking on their wristwatch, his location, what he looked like. Ooh, buddy. Not good. So he hightails it out of there, right? And he's like trying to stay low, and then some police catch up with him. And these policemen are aliens too. They have a fantastic fight scene. Nada gets one of the guns from the cops and shoots the other one, and then shoots the second one. He's done killed 2 policemen. Okay? He's killed 2 policemen. Steals the shotgun out of their car. So now he has a pistol and a shotgun. And he dips into a bank. Because there's sirens all over the place, he dips into a bank. And that's where we get the great line. I've come here to chew bubble gum and kick some ass. And I'm all out of bubble gum. And then he starts killing the aliens that are in the bank. He headshots one really good. Just ridiculous. And he turns to one that is talking on his wristwatch. But then all of a sudden, like, he does like this little twist and he fucking disappears. Just like, he's gone. So like, Nada's like, oh crap, there's more police. So he dips out the back door, and he's walking down the alley, and he comes to a police officer who is a human, and he just tells him like, yo, kick bricks, Then we, see Holly walking down a parking garage. Nada basically kidnaps her in a sense, tells her just like to take him to her house, because like the glasses make it feel like you're on drugs, and he's just feeling So they get to her house, and again he's like coming down hard from the glasses, right? And she's like, it doesn't matter what you say. Like, I'll try the glasses on. If I don't see what you see, like, I'm going to see it anyways. Because you have all the power here. You have 2 guns. Like, you have all the power. But she gets up because she's thirsty. She grabs a bottle and she pours a glass. And they're talking. And, he finds out that she works at the TV station. So he gets up and he's like, oh my God. There's something with the TV. They're doing something with the TV. And then she cracks him over the head with the bottle and throws him out her window. So, 1, his glasses get left behind at her house. 2, like, she just threw him out of a window. He goes tumbling down this hillside. Somehow is alive. I don't know, guys. Gets up. Kind of walks it off a little bit, hears sirens, so he's like, oh God, I gotta go. So he goes back to the alleyway to try to find the glasses. God, of course. What happens? Trash people come and picked up the glasses. So he gets his way into the trash compactor, finds the box, grabs it, and slides out the trash. He goes to the site to find Frank. And Frank's like, dude, no one needs to see you here. Like, how many people did you kill? Like, what the hell's wrong with you, right? And, so, like, Nada's like, whatever, and goes back to the alleyway. Where later on, like, Frank finds him, throws money at him, and he's like, here, you know, like, is the pay that you were owed for your, like, 1 day of work, right? And so this is where, like, Nada's trying to get Frank to put on the sunglasses. And Frank's like, no. Not doing it. No. So they beat the living crap out of each other. It's like a good 3.5 minute, like, fight scene, maybe, I don't know. It's a great scene. But finally, right, after they beat the crap out of each other, Frank puts on, or Nada puts the sunglasses on Frank. And Frank can see. He sees, like, one of their, like, little drones in the sky, right? And Piper says another hilarious line. He says, life's a bitch, and she's in heat. What is that? I'm sorry. That's hilarious. So funny. So they go to a hotel, they pay for a hotel, they're, like, washing up, and Frank's like, you know, like, what the hell? Like, what are we gonna do? How long have they been here? What's going on? You know, he's just asking, like, Nada, all these questions. And he's like, you know, when you get a plan, let me know. But, like, I don't know what's up, right? So, like, they're relaxing, and, Nada gives us a little glimpse into, like, his life, right? Before. Basically says, like, you know, Dad was great, and then something, like, flipped when I was younger, and, like, you know, he, like, was very angry and, like, hated everything, right? Tried to slit my, like, throat, you know, things of that nature. He's like, I ran away when I was 13. And, you know, they're just having, like, you know, a little heart-to-heart. So, I mean, we see that, like, Nada has probably been on his own since he was, like, a young child. Just, you know, basically just been fighting to survive since, you know, being a preteen. So, Gilbert actually, like, runs into Frank, and he's like, meet us here. Like, basically it's like, meet the resistance, right? So they go, and the guard's like, hey guys, we got something new going on. And they're just kind of like, okay, whatever, right? So they go in. The lady is like, hey guys, like, no need for sunglasses in here, we're all human. Right, so they take them off, and she's like, and we just got these in, and she hands them contact lenses, and they very weirdly pop those contact lenses in, right? So they're talking, everyone's talking, like, they're, you know, what are we gonna do, like, you know, what's up? One of the other guys, like, gives Frank, like, a watch, you know, like, basically, like, they got off of, somehow they got it from, you know, one of the aliens, but Frank's like, oh, okay, whatever. They're talking about the TV station, and how the TV station, like, has to be, like, you know, one of their big, like, spots where they're broadcasting, you know, things out of, right? Well, who's to show up? No other than Holly, because remember, Holly works for the TV station, and she's like, they're clear. Okay, Holly, you lie, but whatever. So, sorry for the yawn, guys. That's very inappropriate, and well, not inappropriate. It's unprofessional. So shortly after Holly comes, right? There's a police raid on here now, and so many of those people die. Like, So many people die. I don't know. That was not a good idea. So, of course, Nada and Frank are like out of there. They get split up from Holly, but you know they gotta fend for themselves. Um, Frank's trying to mess with the watch, and like, because he thinks that they got all of the policemen. When no, there's like more coming. So Frank's watch is like malfunctioning, and like he just tosses it, and it opens like a portal hole, right? Big hole in the ground, and like they drop down into it, and it's actually like looks like a tunnel way, right? Like underneath the city of Los Angeles. Um, and so they're walking through, and they hear two guards like celebrating because they hear that like they've taken down the resistance, right? Um, and then they stumble into like this grand hall, right? Where someone in political power is making a speech of like, you know, what benefits us will benefit you, and you know, yada yada yada. And then who shows up but the Drifter. Drifter shows up. He's in a nice suit, looking fancy, and Frank and Nada just kind of look at him, and he's like, "Oh, good to see that you've joined on the team." He's like, "Y'all should have dressed up a little bit more for this occasion, right?" He's like, "Come on, let me give you a tour." Seems really, really cocky, right? Just very cocky. So yeah, he's like showing them like the weird space travel thing that they have, which is basically just like looks like it just like zaps you into like space. I don't know. They didn't really spend a whole lot of time on it. And then he takes them to the news station. Yeah. So, Nada and Frank are like, you turned on your people, like what the hell? But first, like, they're like, hey, do you think that you could get us into where they're broadcasting? And he's like, yeah, like, and he goes to the guards and he's like, hey, dudes, like, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, let me see your clearance. And then, Frank and Nada just, like, shoot the guards. Because, they're asking too many questions. They end up killing the Drifter. There's some like scuffling going around. But so Nada and Frank they don't get into where they're broadcasting, but they start like running through like, areas and trying to get to the roof, right? Well, elevators get shut down, so they gotta take the stairs, and they're running into problems left and right. They run into Holly, and they're like, come with us, and they take her, and then Holly betrays them by shooting Frank in the head while Nada's like already on the roof. And then Holly is going to try to shoot Nada if he shoots out the satellite that is transmitting everything. So she's like, put it down. And he's like, he does. There's like a helicopter, up there. But he like pulls this little tiny gun, right? Just a little tiny gun. He pulls it from his shirt pocket, like from his shirt sleeve, and shoots Holly. And then shoots the satellite, and there is this big explosion that doesn't seem like it should really like be that big, right? And then they shoot Nada. So Nada's laying there. I'm assuming he's gonna die, but he's kind of happy because now he knows that everyone can see, these people for what they truly, truly are. And that's what happens. Like, we see that the newscasters are like, they finally come into their form, right? Their whole alien form. Everyone can see it. We end on one that makes me laugh. You know, there's a couple, they doing the thing. She's real into it, doing the thing, and she looks down, and what is it? You know, he alien, he all messed up. He is messed up. And then the movie ends. So, I mean, look, They Live is fantastic. Fantastic. And the only place that I have been able to find it is Peacock. Now, I have feelings about Peacock. I will leave them to myself because that's the only place right now that I can watch WWE pay-per-views, and so I have to be nice to them. Anyways, if you have never seen it, watch it. If you've seen it before, watch it again, because it still makes some really good points nowadays as far as capitalism and everything goes. It still works today. But I don't know what I'm going to do next week. I think I need help with this because I'm not sure. Thanks, Wolfie. I guess that's better than, just getting flung in my face like it did last time, right? Okay, so let's see. Ooh. Hellbound, Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth. That's very long. It's a very long title. But I'm a big fan of the, Hellraiser franchise. Love me a good Pinhead. There's none of the other Cenobites that are really that cute. So, Pinhead's my dude, you know what I'm saying? So, stick around next week for a little Hellraiser action. Bye, guys.